through a constitutional provision to use money which has not been appropriated by Parliament and come to Parliament later for approval or legalization. So you realize that even though the amount might be in the budget and there is not enough, but the government has that free hand to say, because of the drought in the country now, Treasury can spend more money than in the budget and then come to Parliament for us to approve. And I want to tell you, for the many years I've been in Parliament, members of Parliament have always approved resources which have been spent by the executive before approval, so long as those resources are used for national emergencies. So I want to assure Kenyans that the executive cannot always use money and come to Parliament for approval. And members of Parliament will be more than willing to approve. And only under one condition, it is a national emergency. And I do believe drought is a national emergency.
Which has not been declared just.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk to the county commissioner, Kitui County, probably localize the conversation this evening. You were telling us about 188,550 people are in dire need, particularly in Kitui County. How are you responding to ensure, first of all, there is equity in the distribution of relief to these people that badly need it?
Thank you for the question. First of all, the tabulation is based on census.
Okay.
With the most affected being Ningin North with 9,091 or 691, 9,691, and the least affected is recently 6 because they are for but in terms of sub-counties at least on various times since November, at least the government has been able to distribute around 300 bags of rice and on the minimum, at least. And this one is supposed to have immediate need of supply, relief supply, so that this will come from the need. On top of that, we have been collaborating the county government in what we call county, steering the county government in what we call county steering committee, which we could share with the governor.
Okay.
And that's in concurrence with what Mheshimiwa is saying, that the county government has some funds allocated for money. The big abundance goes to the national government. We were able to do our estimate through guidance by national drought management authority. And that's how we arrived at the figure to advise the national government. Plans are underway to continue supplying the new areas. Continue supplying the new areas. Then decide how they decide, depending on the magnitude of it will be targeting the 19th of 20th. So that's one of the interventions. Of course, there are others, including cash transfer for the vulnerable groups. We have 39,000 beneficiaries who were identified before. There is also the distribution of relief during the period since November has passed in the country. 1.4 million
in Kitui County. Okay.
What has been delivered here? And I think we are also able to verify from the ground that indeed the fund has been released. And also the money that goes to the vulnerable kids, everything which is also around 15,000. So there are various efforts being done by the government to address the issue.
Okay, fantastic. Mheshimiwa Makali, Kitui is vast, a very vast county, and that is and equity in distribution. Do you think the government response from your own assessment has shown readiness to respond to that emerging humanitarian crisis in Kitui County?
I think the issue of drought, and you know, normally what happens in drought, it leads. So, in terms of being ready, the way I look at this problem, in this county and the neighboring counties, these issues are historical. If you look at the history of Kitui, you realize that drought is nothing new. Almost every 2 years, you'll be surprised. Already droughts have been documented in Kenya. They moved back all the way to 1923. And if you ask the old men here, they will tell you that some of our elders, those old days were not able to say when they were born. Like now, if you ask me, I will say I was born this date, this month. And the only thing which would determine when you were born was droughts which were actually named after. So somebody would say, you are Katongelele, you are Nikwangwete. So to me, this thing of drought is nothing new to us. And that's why we see, anytime we look at the government, we see a deliberate way or move of not addressing our problem. I want to share some experience. I did work in Sudan at some point as a consultant. And you realize that Sudan is a desert, more than Kitui. It's a total desert. What have they done? They have used the River Nile, which comes from this country, originates from Lake Victoria here. They have done a tunnel, very long tunnel, about 1,000 kilometers. And they get the water from River Nile all the way interior to their land. And that's the water they are using to plant sugar, which we buy from them, which is really cheaper than our sugar. So why am I saying this? I'm saying, when I look at the history of this country, there has been a deliberate move. And I think if you know the history of the country, we used to have what we used to call this seasonal. That policy paper deliberately decided that public resources will be targeted to high potential areas. Into that category, high potential areas. And majority of the country was marginalized. And even as we talk about high potential areas in this country, you must get this fact right. These are statistics. Yeah. Kenya, which means we are talking about 20% of the Kenya as a country taking more than 80% of the resources. So over time, we have been marginalized as a region. And that's why you see, in Ukambani, we should not be talking about lack of food. We have Tana River, we have Athi River, stretching between our land. Now, imagine if the government deliberately decided to lay the tunnel running from Tana River coming into Kitui, rather than coming from Athi River coming into Kitui, and then they let the county government do the small channels going to the farms. This area where you are seated, you'll be surprised. We can do 3 crops in a year.
All right. I want to hear the county commissioner's response, because I mean, you've been here before. Again, you came.
Yeah, yes, come back.
Probably you're familiar.
But which is the basket for food in this country? They plant January, they harvest September. In Kitui, we plant in November. By February, we have, like now we're harvesting, which means you can plant again March, harvest June, and plant June, harvest November. So in reality, if we had water, we'll feed this country. We don't need to feed even Kitui.
Let's see about inaction. And when I talk about inaction, I'm talking about the national government and the county government in terms of preparing for the future.
It's something that we've been working for.
Okay.
And currently we have a program that we call the Tender Project. That is the Drought and Drought emergencies. And what we are doing with that project is trying to manage what we refer to as arid and semi-arid areas, so that the economic activity that we do there can be more beneficial and more friendly to the environment. Managing the numbers, especially the livestock, and also having the right breed, of course, depending on the climate of that particular area, and also planning in terms of provision of water conservation. Of course, priority has been to drinking water. Currently, we have the water dam under construction. And there is one that is in the pipeline, that is Drought, which is between the border of. These are meant to end the perennial drought, water scarcity problems within this also improve in terms of, because the grant force is meant also to be used for irrigation other than production of power. There are also other aspects in terms of value addition, so that you can also be able to provide line to value and whatever is being produced within the county. The county government and national government are doing an application to that community, which is meant to encourage processing of whatever is produced from within the city. Of course, we are also supporting the vaccination process to improve our breeds, and also supporting the farmer in terms of insurance covers to cover them from the drought losses. These are some of the activities that we are jointly doing with the country so that we can cushion the farmer in case of any drought, and also try to end over dependence on rain, and also try to modify our way of farming and ensure that we can produce as much more as seen throughout the year.
All right. At this point, probably much more, MAKALI, because we shall introduce the story shortly. I want us to talk about the turnarounds because Kitui County suffers a tragedy in both when there is sun and when there is rain. Because not long ago we were talking about the number of people who died being swept downstream during the floods down here in Zauni. You can't explain that paradox of a county that suffers during the sun, and then 2 months down the line it rains, and there is no trace of where that water goes. What kind of picture does that paint, and how do we turn around such a story, particularly in counties like Kitui, Tana River, and all these other counties?
Actually, if you look at the master plan for development of dams in this country, the government had very good plans to build big dams along some of these big rivers. And the idea was to be able to stop the water from going to the ocean and use that water to do irrigation, or for either livestock use or domestic use. Now, what has happened over time? Most of these huge dams have remained on paper. They have never been done. If you drive about 3 kilometers from here, you find Uman Dam, just next to the town here. It has been there since 2008. How many years are those from 2008? About 18 years. It has never been completed. If that dam was completed, it would provide water to this town, and it will do irrigation, that part of the town. But it hasn't been completed. So I see a situation where the government is very good at saying we will do, but when it comes to doing, they don't do. I just want to give you an example from what the commissioner said. We have an institution called National Drought Management Authority in this country. If you look at that authority, because it's a parastatal, the main objective or their main role is to be able to predict emergencies like what we are going through, come up with mitigating measures, and prepare the country. Provide what we do early warning systems, so that by now they should have been able to tell the country late last year that from our analysis, this country will be going through this level of drought. Yesterday we were discussing that institution, and actually we were saying more likely we deny them budget because we are giving them money, which is taxpayers' money, and they are not preparing the country for drought. So I think time has come when people must be accountable. If you are given a responsibility and you are not performing as per the expectation of that office, I think you agree with me. It's good you pave way, other people coming. Otherwise, we'll have a country where we keep on talking. These days, I'm sure you are aware, in the old days, ukiuliza these guys watakwambia, mlijua mtu alikuwa anaitwa Water Francis, mnamjua? Alikuwa anasema kesho mvua itanyesha saa hii, weather itakuwa namna hii, alafu inakataa kunyesha. Si mnamjua? Siku hizi, because of technology, you can be able to predict what will happen tomorrow at 1. They say it will rain tomorrow at 1 and by 1 inaanguka. Mnaona? Wanasema kesho asubuhi kutakuwa na jua. Unakuta there's jua. So with this kind of technology, it means we can use technology to predict our weather, predict the climate, and prepare for eventualities like what we are going through, boss.
Quite interesting.
Which I think we are not doing as a country.
All right. Nancy Perry was down MA.KITUI South constituency, in a place called Muda and down towards Musenge. There's an emerging issue there, and that is an issue of security. When you have illegal herders coming to Kitui and obviously causing yet another conflict that raises about security questions. And we'll pose that question later to the county commissioner. But first of all, that story and answer your query. So once Kisha Okware engages the audience. Okay. We are still within the scene. So we do 15 and then we will come back later. Okay.
Okay, so vile nilikuwa nimewaeleza earlier on, kirudi tutakuwa tunapata maswali kutoka kwenu, labda maswali ama kama ni mchango wako kuhusu kile kinafaa kufanywa kukabiliana na hili swala la ukame. Kila mwaka tunapata Kenya imekuwa perennial issue. Kwa hivyo sijui kama kuna yeyote ambaye ako na swali ndio tayari nijue swali ama hili mchango wote.
Anda maoni.
Naye pale. Na kuna mama hapa. We can take the first two.
Yes, tutakuwa sawa. Alafu swali lako liwe fupi. Sisi nasema kama ni swali ama mchango tuende kidogo kabla ya wakati. Sawa.
Open now, deep for long.
So they're coming back to query direct. To me, and then I hand over to query. Okay.
Again, you're on the car straight.
That's a story by Nancy Okware. The county commissioner will be responding to that a little bit later. But first of all, because we have audiences inside this hall, Nancy Okware, over to you. You can engage a few of them.
Thank you so much, John Victoria, na bila shaka kama ulivyosema kuna wananchi ambao wamekuwa na utulivu na wamekuwa hapa tayari tu kutoa mchango wao na vile vile kusema tu yake ambayo wanahisi anastahili kufanywa ili kuhakikisha tatizo kama hili linakamilika huko nchini ama kudumu nchini. Na nitaanza na wewe tutazama upande huu ueleze kama jina lako na pengine swali lako ama mchango wako kwenye mazungumzo haya.
Asante sana. Jina langu ni Mali Mbele. Tangu ni maoni serikali ikafute pia permanent ambayo itaweza kuisha jambo la kama shida ya ukame katika kaunti kosa wananchi waweze kuishi.
Asante sana kwa mchango wako. Pia nitakuwa nielekea upande huu. Pengine tukianza na Eleze jina lako, ikiwa una swali na mchango wako. Kwa majina naitwa Mariam Mahmud, mimi ni mkazi wa Afrika. Nimefurahia kwamba leo hii mpenzi wangu kwamba katika budget ya Drought. Lakini la kushangaza ni kwamba tumekuwa tukiona ukame kila wakati, naye amekufa miongo mitatu na ana maono. Tumeona yeye kwamba yuko na maono, yeye kama kiongozi, yeye ndiye tegemeo letu. Vipi atakavyofanya tuone kwamba hili bana njaa alitukabidhi. Kweli sisi watu wa town hatuna mashamba, lakini tuko na mashamba nje ya town. Tuliona hivi majuzi kulikuwa na replacement ya mbuzi, state department ya livestock waliwahi kutuletea, ambapo PS wa livestock Jonathan Mweke alileta mifugo. Mtu mmoja alikuwa akipata mbuzi, replacement ya mbuzi 5, lakini kimimi haikutosha na ilifikia wachache, ambapo baada ya njaa ikiingia na kufikia wengi. So mimi ninavyo swali langu ni kwamba kwa viongozi ambapo tuko naye bwana Makali kama ndiye MP wetu hapa, yeye kipindi hicho mbuzi 5 tukiletewa, naye pia alitafuta kazi zake, alipata kombo. Sasa hii chakula ikifika, tunaona tunaitwa kwa chief, chakula kikitoka kwa ofisi ya county commission, unapata mtu anapata gorogoro moja, mtu uko na family ya watoto 10, haitoshi. Wacha tuchukue swali la mwisho kwa sababu tutaanza na jina lako na ndio na swali lako. Jina langu ni nataka kushukuru mheshimiwa, anaongea jambo la maana sana. Amesema kama president wote wale wamekuwa katika serikali wangekuwa wameangalia hii janga la njaa la Kitui, imekuwa janga likitoka hata kabla hakijazaliwa. Na hawa president wote hakuna mtu alifikiria kuchukua hiyo mto ya Tana River, mto ya River, watuletee maji sisi tuwe tunapanda chakula ama tunapanda mboga tuweze kusaidia. Sasa nataka kumwambia mheshimiwa ajaribu sana kutusaidia hiyo kitu ifanywe, kwa sababu is coming governor. Akikuwa governor pia aingie zaidi tupate maji.
Absolutely. Quite interesting questions coming in.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you've been able to note some of the areas of response. But before we do that, because we have bills to pay, let's go back to studio, pay bills, and then come back. We shall pick up the conversation.
Mariam.
We're back from Kitui County, the Kitui Multipurpose Hall. We continue with this multi-stakeholder conversation regarding response to the drought. There are questions that are posed by the audience, and they will respond to them shortly. And of course, let's make the responses short because, again, also time is quite constrained. But let's begin with the story that Nancy Okware executed regarding the security situation, particularly in Kitui South, those areas of Musenge. You've had people who are complaining that they've been displaced completely by the insecurity being brought about by illegal herders who are grazing in Kitui South. How is government responding to that?
I would say that the issue of climate of Kitui South and borderline with Canada has been there for a long time. And it did not only affect the Kitui South, but also the northern part of that is moving up in the central, especially the areas of Kingi and Musa counties, Ngomin area in Chuso. But one of the issues that we dealt with at first, the first time I was here, was to push them back and also prosecute where we felt that their fences committed. Secondly, the government was able to assist us with recruitment of 200 MPs. And in Kitui South, we have around 50 to the point that are wait, working alongside with the police. We also did an intervention with the county government constructing a number of police stations, which we are supposed to deploy officers. The one that was completed is underway, and that one is in Jesus County, still moving up. It was opened as GSU camp, and it has been limited capacity. I was in Musenge area, the entire Muda, the areas that are affected by camel invasion and finding. We went around and we were in agreement that the camels should be pushed to beyond the food.
Okay. Pushed back.
Yes.
Okay.
Towards the game reserve.
Okay.
One of the main challenges that we have is that that area borders the game reserve, and there is also a district as to where the boundary between is. The game reserve is also not well managed, and because if it were, then probably we could manage the deployment of livestock within that area. So what we are doing at the moment is just to do a pushback to Anthony River. Also, the MP has a support in that area. The reason as to why the other areas are being managed and not south is something that we also want to understand better, and that's why we are doing that.
Okay.
So that we can also try to find out why things did not work well even after we end up with this.
All right. Okay, quite interesting. Mheshimiwa Makali, you have two questions from your voters. Very quickly.
Wacha kwanza kabla sija jibu maswali ya watu wangu hapa niongezee tu vile commissioner amesema mambo ya usalama. Usalama katika sehemu yetu ya Kitui South na along the border, sisi kama viongozi wa Kitui County tulikutana na National Integration and Cohesion Commission. Na tukakubaliana mambo manne walitakiwa wafanye ili tuweze kumaliza shida ya pale. Jambo la kwanza ilikuwa ni tuwekewe beacons. Tujue mpaka ya Kitui na mpaka ya Tana River. Ndio mtu akiwa Kitui ajue ako Kitui na mtu akiwa Tana River ajue ako nini. Kama uko Tana River na wewe ni mgeni wetu, ukiwa uko Kitui na wewe ni wa Tana River, ujue wewe ni mgeni wetu. Na mgeni akiingia kwa wenyeji, hawezi akawa anaenda kulala bedroom. Ana behave kwa sababu ni ndani ni mgeni. Kwa hiyo tukasema kwanza tuweke hiyo mpaka. Ya pili ni ile ya police reserve. Na nashukuru commissioner ya kwamba wao walikuja. Ya tatu tulikuwa tumesema ya kwamba tukiwekewa hiyo mpaka, ile police stations gavana wetu Malombe amejenga, ziwekwe askari. Ndio askari wanachunga mpaka. Kufikia sasa mnajua hata wengine watu walitoka Tana River, wakavunja police station wakasema ni yao, wakang'oa mabati wakaenda nayo. Hiyo tukasema hiyo ni criminal, tungependa kuona watu wameshikwa. Hiyo ilikuwa ni jambo la tatu. Na jambo la mwisho tukasema kulingana na katiba yetu, serikali kuu inatakiwa ihakikishe kila mwananchi wa Kenya anaishi na usalama. Usalama upo. Si tulisema hivyo namna hiyo. Kwa hivyo yule mtu ana jukumu kubwa ni serikali kuu kuhakikisha kwamba watu wasukumwe waende mahali wanatoka. Lakini nyinyi watu wa Kitui niwaulize, kwa nini watu wanakuja huku kwetu? Si wanatafuta nyasi. Yenye inamaanisha sisi tuna nyasi na wao hawana nini? Tungependa kuona watu wetu wakiweka mbuzi, wakiweka ng'ombe, tutumie hiyo nyasi yetu tuweze kuendeleza uchumi wetu. Si sawa? Kwa hiyo ni kumaanisha ya kwamba sisi tukiweka mbuzi na ng'ombe tutakuwa utajiri utaingia. Kwa sababu wao nyasi imeisha na sisi tuna nini? Kwa hivyo huku kwetu mvua ikinyesha miezi miwili, tuna nyasi ya kutosha. So bwana commissioner, what I would want to say is to encourage our people, sisi tuweke hiyo ngamia na tuweke ng'ombe na tuweke mbuzi. Yao ikije kutana na yetu ikute yetu imejaa huko, yao iondoke iende. Si utajiri utakuwa huku kwetu. Mariamu umesema mambo ya vile tungesaidia. Ukiangalia serikali ya Sudan na Egypt, vile nimesema, mto ni moja tu, inaitwa River Nile. Ile matunda unaiona kwa supermarket hapa imetoka Egypt. Inatokanga kwa hiyo mto. Wao wametumia huo mto, serikali ilijitokeza ikasema sisi kama serikali ya Sudan na sisi kama serikali ya Egypt tutaweka pesa ya serikali tuhakikishe kwamba maji imefikia watu wetu. Ile pesa inahitajika tuweze kutoa maji Tana River na Athi River ikuje Kitui, sio pesa ya county government ya Malombe. Ni pesa ya serikali kuu. Tungependa kuona serikali kuu ikitenga pesa kama bilioni 300, 400, ituwekee tu mara moja na ituache sisi tuendelee na maisha. Lakini tukisema tutaweka na ile ya Malombe, hata nikiwa gavana wenu, tukiweka na hiyo hatutaweza. Kwa hivyo we need a very well deliberate move for the national government to lay the infrastructure, the main infrastructure. Ile mtaro kubwa inaleta maji. Hiyo hii nyingine kidogo aniachie. Nitawekea kwa mashamba tulime, tulishe Kenya. Hatutalisha tulishe wapi? Tulishe Kenya. Ile nyingine hii jambo ya kupea watu mbuzi 5 ama kama ile yangu nilipeana mbuzi 2 kwa kila mboma. Hiyo si sustainable. Sasa nakwambia ukienda ile PS mweka alipeana labda zote zimeenda na ukame. Lakini kuna kitu commission ameongea juu yake ya maana sana, ningependa watu musikize. Kitu inaitwa insurance scheme. Yaani serikali iweke pesa ya kuinsure, ndio mbuzi yako ikikufa insurance inakulipa, mvua ikirudi unanunua mbuzi nyingine unaweka kwa shamba. That is the way to go. That we need a sustainable way. And one of the ways is to make sure that we have enough money under that insurance scheme, so that when the drought comes and kills our goats, then tutaweza restock. Ama serikali ina mpangilio ya kwamba ikiona drought nimekuja kulingana na ile shirika lilikuwa limesema mbele yake, tukijua kutakuwa na drought mwezi wa 5, mwezi wa 4 tunanunua hizo mbuzi zote, tunapeleka adhiriba, tunachinja, zinakuwa nyama, tunapea mkulima pesa, anaweka kwa mfuko, mvua ikianguka anatoa pesa kwa mfuko, ananunua nini? Mbuzi tena. Hiyo ndio njia ya kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeweka pesa kwa watu wetu na tunawasaidia uchumi nafanya nini? Inapanda. I think ndio maswali yalikuwa yameulizwa. Basically tukienda njia hiyo tutakuwa tumesaidia nchi. Lakini sisi, wacha nikwambie ndugu yangu, sisi kwa sababu sisi ni wanasiasa, sisi tunasema tumeona mpangilio ya kwamba ni kama serikali zile zimechukua Kenya tangu tuingie tupate uhuru. Kumekuwa na mpangilio wa kuhakikisha wale watu wametoka huku sehemu zimekauka, sisi tukae maskini mpaka kufa kwetu, na watoto wetu wakae maskini mpaka kufa, na wajukuu wetu wakae maskini mpaka kufa. Wakati umefika tuseme sisi kama Wakenya, hii ndio nchi yetu. Na sasa mahali imefika, wapende wasipende, sisi ndio tutalisha hii nchi. Watupatie maji, watupatie insurance, tusaidie nchi songe mbele.
All right, quite interesting. And Commissioner, you had also raised that matter, and I want you to emphasize on it, that Kitui has a lot of potential, particularly when it comes to pastoralism. It's an agro-pastoral county, but it also has very huge potential in terms of pursuing pastoralism.
Yeah, I would say vile wakati nimekuwa hapa na sijakuwa hapa mimi hapa nimesomea hii na ninajua mvua hata sio vile mheshimiwa anasema mwezi 2, wiki 3, wiki 4 mvua imetosha ya nyasi. Huo ndio kweli. Hata ukiangalia ng'ombe na mbuzi saa hii hamwezi mkasema zimeharibika, zinaonekana bado ziko na afya. Yule anauza mbuzi yake pale mtaa hauzi kwa sababu ya njaa, anauza kwa sababu anataka kupata nini? Pesa. Na kuna hiyo interaction kingine nitakwambia between watu wa Tana River na watu wa Kitui. Kwa hiyo muda market it drives because of that interaction. The breeds ambazo wako nazo sana sana zimetokea pande hizo, so hiyo uhusiano huwezi kuua kabisa. But sisi sana sana watu wa Kitui hatujashika hiyo mambo ya ufugaji sana, lakini wakati tunasema kuna kiangazi, mifugo inatoka kutoka hapa mbali Mandera inaletwa hapa. Kwani kuna kiangazi ya mifugo? Hiyo ni clear indication kwamba kama wewe ungeweka mifugo yako, Ivano ungekuwa unapata kitu. Lakini yule alipanda mahindi, nitasema tu vile nimekuwa nikisema, baada ya mwezi mmoja inakuwa kitu kama kitunguu, haiwezi kumea, mvua inanyesha haiwezi kufikisha mwisho. Bahati nzuri hapa Central nafikiri wanavuna kidogo.
Sisi tumevuna.
Lakini ukiangalia gharama ya kulima eka moja ya mahindi, afadhali uingie sokoni ununue gunia moja kama uko na pesa. Lakini kama ungekuwa na mifugo yako, unauza moja, unapata chakula unaweka kwa nyumba, na zingine zinaendelea kufanya nini? Kulisha. So nikiangalia Kitui iko na 34,000 square kilometers. And the population is around 1.6 million. It is vast, hatuja kuwa procurement. Ranches tunaweza tengeneza easily because wacha zile ngamia mnasema ndio yetu. Kuna ng'ombe zinatoka pande ya Kajiado zinakuja pande ya Kitui. So there is a high potential here that is not tapped by locals. But mtu akiwa nje anaiona na anakuja na tap anatoroka. People are buying land here. Lakini sisi wenyewe hatuja tap hiyo. Labda tufikirie kabla hatujauza mashamba yetu, tufikirie kile tunaweza fanya ambacho kinaweza stahimili hali ambayo tuko nayo ukame kwa mara kwa mara. Kwa mimea ndio tunaweza ile inakuwa haraka haraka, lakini sana sana ukienda upande wa mifugo, mbuzi na ng'ombe, wanyama huwezi kusema.
Mheshimiwa Makali, from the point raised by the county commissioner.
Yes.
Because sometimes it's a paradigm shift in terms of thought.
Yeah, thought.
And sometimes the citizens will need to be shepherded by their political leadership. What role are you going to be playing moving into the future? First of all, crop resistance, having to inculcate the culture of drought-resistant crops, and also importantly, venturing towards that area of pastoralism.
I totally agree with what the commissioner is saying. Actually, all the way from Kitui South, cutting across Kitui East, Mwingi Central, Mwingi North, we would have serious ranches where people can even be having 1,000 goats, 1,000 cows, so long as they are given that the support from the government for them to do that, and they are assured that the keeping of the livestock will not be interfered with. So I always say this. From where I sit, this county is a sleeping giant. From where I sit. Hii kaunti yetu hii watu wangu. Hii. Ikiamuka isimame hivi. Kenya itajua kuna kaunti inaitwa Kitui. It's only that, as the commissioner is saying, we have a very huge potential, but I don't think really we have tapped that potential. Now, the way forward, more so agriculture, because we're talking about drought. When you look at the latest agricultural policy, which is called agriculture growth and I think it's sustainability policy, it talks about 3-4 elements. One element is to ensure that we do commercial farming. How do you do that? You take care of the inputs so that you ensure the seeds are good. You ensure that fertilizer is provided in good time. That's level one. Level two is where we talk about the marketing, so that when people produce their products, they can market. Level three is now the research component, that our research institutions, the agriculture-related research institutions, need to be constantly to be doing more research so that they know which seed is good for which area. In that case, then we will be improving the productivity of the area. And then last but not least is the extension service. You know, if you remember well, and I'm sure Commissioner can remember, because in the old days, ile wizara ya agriculture, si mnakumbuka walikuwa wanatuma watu kwa mashamba, unaambiwa extension, ukipanda namna hii fanya hivi, na watu walikuwa wanapata chakula. Siku hizi wamepungua sana, utakuta hata kaunti zingine hawana, na ndio watu wanasaidia mkulima ili aweze kulima kwa ile njia inafaa. Kwa hivyo ni lazima pia kama kaunti tuhakikishe kwamba tukiamua tunaenda upande wa ufungaji, ni lazima tuhakikishe kuna livestock extension officers, na wale wanaenda upande wa ukulima, sana sana hapa Kitui Central ni kulima, tunapewa agricultural extension officers. Ndio kama consultant hapa ameamua kulima, kuna ule mtu atamsaidia, kama ni kitunguu, hii ndio mbegu mzuri, hii ndio ndao utaweka, hii ndio fertilizer utaweka. Tukisaidiana hivyo, tutakuwa tumepata chakula ya kula na ya kuuza, na watu wetu watapata nini. So I think the way to go is to make sure that the 4 items I've mentioned, extension services, research, input provisions, and marketing of the product, that will save us as a county.
As we near closing this matter, the county commissioner, last week the cabinet approved the release of about 4.1 billion shillings to address the drought situation across the country. Of course, there have been other releases in November. I think in January also there was a release of several billions of shillings to go towards this. But particularly when it comes to Kitui, are you projecting that the numbers will go up? And if they do, how will you respond to it?
Of course, we do periodical evaluation of the situation or situation appraisal. And the 188,550 that we're talking about is not static.
Okay.
It's subject to whether the rains will come or not. But even if the rains come, the crowds cannot be thrown out like we are the same.
Yeah, yeah.
So we expect that the situation may not be good for probably the next 2-3 months. Therefore, probably the next evaluation will also find us in a not a so good situation. But we can't project figures until the evaluation professional is done.
But you're adequately prepared if that eventuality comes.
We are prepared and we are advising the government. We are working closely with the county government, and whatever figures are needed, we will get them.
All right. Mheshimiwa, as we wind up, paraphrase a citizen I interviewed yesterday from Wing, who talked about misplaced priorities. And said, ukipata Kisumu kuna street light, it doesn't mean Kitui ama Mwingi inahitaji street lights.
Exactly.
Na akasema nitamulikwa na taa nikiwa na njaa. And I want you to speak to the aspect of misplaced priorities, and not just in Kitui, because even in some of these counties affected by drought, you realize sometimes you see some sense of misplaced priorities. I want you to speak to it as responsible.
Now, what has happened, if you look at our constitution, I think it's Article 118, it says that whatever you do for the people, there must be public participation. Why the need for public participation? The need for public participation is because the Englishman said, is the wearer of the shoe knows where it pinches most. So if I live in Kitui, it's only the people who live in Kitui would know what are their priorities. So if you are a leader and you want to lead the people well and lead them in line with what they want, you need to conduct public participation. And that's why I believe, as you do your county strategic plan, as you do your normal strategic plans, you need to bring on board everyone in that county so that you're able to pick their mind in terms of what do they want. If you go that direction, you'll never get your priorities wrong. And that's what I would want to encourage Kenyan leaders, that public participation is a constitutional provision, it is mandatory. So just don't wake up in the morning and say, nitawapatia barabara. Usiamuke useme nitawapatia maji. Kwanza uulize, mna haja ya maji. Ukiangalia saa hii mahali sisi tumekaa saa hii, na commissioner amesema, ile njaa tuko nayo hapa Kitui ya Kati, sio ile njaa iko Mwingi North, sio ile njaa iko Mutitu. Kwa hivyo, ukiuliza watu wa Mutitu saa hii wanataka nini, watakwambia labda wanataka chakula. Namba moja. Ukiuliza watu wa Kitui Central, watakwambia tumepata kidogo, saa hii tunahitaji kitu kingine. Kwa hivyo, ni lazima kama kiongozi usikise wananchi. But just to sum it up, you know, you asked the commissioner a very difficult question in terms of, he said the situation is likely to worsen because of the numbers. But what is going to happen is, and this is what we are pushing ourselves as members of parliament, we are saying the next supplementary budget, which I'm sure the minister will be bringing to parliament, should be a supplementary budget which is targeted as addressing this national problem. Kwa hivyo, kama tulikuwa tumesema tutajenga mabarabara ama tutajenga maji, saa hii ni kubadilisha hiyo pesa, tuseme kwanza tununulie watu wetu chakula, ndio to save their lives before we do the roads. Because ukifanya mabarabara na watu wamekufa, nani atapita kwa barabara? Kwa hivyo wakati tunahimiza CS Bandi, the minister for the cabinet secretary treasury, that now, as he does this supplementary budget, can he now redirect the resources to address this matter, so that when the county commissioner tells us watu wameongezea from 188 to 300,000, we have the resources to address this need. Unless we do that, my friend, we'll be wasting time.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate the Honorable MAKALI MULU, Member of Parliament for Kitui Central, the County Commissioner Kitui, Mr. Erastus Boy, for joining us tonight. Now, audience wetu, asanteni sana kwa kuja. Let's clap for ourselves. I want to hand you back to Brian Kimani for the rest of the special coverage of the drought situation in Kenya. Thank you. You don't call those are production terms. You still stand by.
Cameras just switch off. Yeah, you see on the screen. You see the screen.
Good. It went well.
That's a good. Hey, it's going to turn that. Yeah, time flies. Eh? We have done almost 1 hour. See the day? Eh? After the news, after the break, yeah. So we have done almost 1 hour. Okay.